Hello and welcome everybody to this week's DevCentral Connects. My name is Boo, your host today. I'm one of the community evangelists on the F5 DevCentral team. DevCentral is supported by community.f5.com, so I would encourage you to go over to the site and actually register for a free membership. It's actually our 20th anniversary right now. It's June right now, yeah. So it's our 20th anniversary right now. We actually have a couple of surprises if you go onto the forums actually, but there is actually a forum group for 20th anniversary discussions. We've got a lot of folks that are chiming in on their past experiences and all the things that they've known with DevCentral over the years. We've had a couple of things going out on social. A couple of weeks back, I actually had one of F5's CTOs, Joel Moses, who was actually a DevCentral MVP when he was a customer of F5's and then joined F5 and then worked through to the point where he's actually our CTO, one of the CTOs at this point. So that's really cool if you want to learn more about how, hey, there's evidence that you could actually be a DevCentral member and become a CTO somewhere. So, you might want to check out that episode. But yeah, I would encourage you to check out DevCentral. Of course, we talk a lot about F5 on there, but there's also lots of other things that you can discuss on there. We do have a water cooler. You can chat about whatever you want on there, or you can chat about technology in general. And we also throw all the show notes from every single week that we have DevCentral Connects onto there as well. One thing that I will highlight, I just said every single week for DevCentral Connects. If you're watching this kind of near the release time right now, we're entering summer. Myself, Jason, Aubrey, we've got PTO coming up. We've got a little bit of travel coming up as well. So we're reducing the schedule just a little bit here. I won't commit to an exact cadence to that, hopefully bi-weekly or so. But Jason actually did hop on last week and he jumped on and talked about the 20th anniversary a little bit on there as well. So just in case you are used to seeing us pop up every single week, just know that for the summer, we're just going to have a little bit of a reduced schedule, but don't worry, lots of content that's coming out. Jason's got his Build It live streams, so watch out for those. That should fill in some of the gaps as well. And I've got some content that I'll be releasing throughout the summer as well, just a little bit more asynchronous as opposed to live streams or podcasts for you to listen to. Speaking of some travel, I was just traveling last week, so I had the opportunity to go to London, England, and go to InfoSec Europe last week. Super cool event. This is the largest infosecurity conference in the Europe region. And so I'm not exactly sure on how many people that they had out there. I believe the attendee count is over between 10 to 20,000, maybe it's like 14,000 or so. It seemed really busy on there, especially on the middle day. It seemed to slow down after that middle day there. It was a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but it was a really packed event. I did a lot of content while I was out there, spoke to a lot of our partners, had the opportunity to actually speak to one of our partners where they actually have one of our DevCentral MVPs on there. For folks who aren't aware, on the community forums, we have MVPs, and they are kind of our most most admired contributors to the DevCentral forums. They lend their expertise out to the community and share and collaborate with folks. And so I was able to chat with the team that he works with. Donald wasn't there, but it was Donald Ross. And so that was really cool as well. So great time. Check out the content. It's all on youtube.com/devcentral, or you can check out my socials. It's on there as well. Also, a couple weeks ago, I was actually at an event called Cube Huddle. More than a couple weeks ago now at this point, probably like 6 weeks ago, or maybe more. Maybe my guest can remind me here. But I had an opportunity to meet a lot of fantastic folks. Got to have some boba as well, and discovered Sig Boba, which was really cool and something that I want to incorporate into the idea of it. Want to incorporate it into other events that I'm at as well, not necessarily as an official Sig Boba. I don't know if we can have a franchise or something, but yeah, one of the folks that I met out there was Leigh Capili, and he is a staff developer advocate with VMware. Great guy to hang out with. He was actually one of the first guys that I met while I was at Cube Huddle. And so, you kind of go to some of these things. I only knew the people that I was working with. And so you're going around and meeting folks. And it's really nice to be able to connect with folks there right away and just have people to chat with throughout the week. So Leigh was one of those folks, and that was great to meet him. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Leigh Capili. Leigh, how you doing?
Yeah. I think a couple of weeks ago is fair. I just had to look it up in my calendar my own self. Right? I think that was mid-May that we were out in Toronto. So
Yep. So
I
yeah,
have been informed by
maybe
plenty of people local to Toronto that you do not pronounce the T. That it's just
Toronto.
Toronto. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think I
Or they
have.
call it the six. If you listen to Drake, I think you just call it the six.
Yeah. Maybe any of our Toronto DevCentral members over there can comment on the next time you post this. So
Yeah, absolutely. Or we'll grab
yeah,
Marino.
that was really cool. Getting to connect up with you and some of the other F5ers. I think we were just at the reception even the night before and got to
Yeah,
already connect and hang out. It's as you said, especially you're coming off of this really huge event in London, right? And Coop Huddle is not that kind of event, right? 10 to 20,000 people. That's a lot of people. I think, had just a few hundred or so at Coop Huddle. And it's cool to have that very community feel, not as busy, not as big, a little bit more personal. And
totally.
yeah, and you are welcome to throw a Sig Boba event whenever you need to. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, hit up me
Well,
and Kunal. For those of you who do not know, Kunal Kushwaha from Sivo Cloud, he and I have been doing these Sig Boba events starting this year. Sig Boba is a special interest group. Boba, it's a play off of the special interest group formal organizations within the Kubernetes development community. So, but we kind of have a
yeah.
fun play on that where it's just like, hey, let's not be so serious and find a fun way to connect with each other. Yeah.
Totally. I like the non-alcohol aspect of it too. There's so
Mhm.
many people that either they can't drink for whatever reason, they're not of age to drink. I know for me, I do drink, but I reserve the amount that I drink because just I find that when you're traveling, it's a very easy way to gain weight.
Yeah.
And that's something that, earlier in my career when I was starting to travel a bunch, I had some weight struggles. And so the alcohol kind of toning that down really helped out. So, and not saying that boba is necessarily going to help you out calories wise, though, because you can certainly overload on that. But but you can't get too carried away. I don't think you can get too carried away with it, where you can get carried away with just consuming bottle after bottle.
Yeah, I think we'll cross that road when we get there, right? If there's just so many Sig Boba events at the next KubeCon, that the people are like, man, I really got to cut back on all of this creamer and soda. And I'll be like, okay, we've got to figure this out. Let's set up some community guidelines, make sure we don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sort of is a response, to the late night party craze that you get at these mega conferences, right? Um, I remember talking with Kunal as well as Caslin Fields, another awesome developer advocate.
Mm,
She works with Google Cloud,
yeah.
um, and Kunal doesn't actually drink either, right? And I personally don't really drink alcohol, and so it's a little bit alienating sometimes, right? When I show up to a place and it's kind of the only thing to do, and
Yeah.
it seems like that happens more often than it's fine, right? Like if you show up somewhere and it's not your scene, like fine. But if you show up somewhere and it's not your scene consistently all the
Yeah.
time, right? Then you're kind of like, oh, well, where's my place? Where are my people? Where's the place that's gonna be for me? And it doesn't have to be, bubble tea or a go-karting event or something. Just something different. Nice to mix it up a little bit. And yeah, I mean, at a mega conference, we're all here to be professional with each other, and to go and connect and find some ways to spark those conversations that show you to a new project or introduce you to somebody new or open up your worldview a little bit. You learn about something cultural in a new place. And so I'd like to see more of these Sigboba events happening, and I'm definitely going to put my hand in to volunteer. So.
Nice. Yeah, I will be too. I didn't do one at InfoSec Europe, although I realized just on the very last day as I was walking through the conference, there's a conference hall that you kind of had to enter, and then there was like a middle walkway where all of the kind of like a food court was, and then right at the end there was a boba place right there, and I was
Oh,
already
we're there the whole time, right?
yeah, I had already had my lunch and everything, and I could have organized the Sig Boba right then and there. But on the next one, I will. So look out for that. Caslin Fields, just as you say that name, she's actually the developer advocate for F5, and so I was actually on some training, like maybe it was a year and a half ago, and she was the one that was doing the workshop kind of thing. So nice little
Yeah,
connection
Caslin
there.
is awesome. I got to hang out with her a little bit at KubeCon and jump on the Kubernetes podcast for a second, and that's sort of where the Sig Boba idea was born, actually. So.
Oh, very nice. Very cool. And so just maybe jumping into our topic as well, for today, we were going to chat about, actually, let me give you a second, Leigh, to kind of introduce yourself as well. I know I just kind of gave you a brief intro as far as your title, but maybe you can go a little bit further into yourself.
Oh yeah. Hey friends, thanks so much for jumping in. So excited to be with DevCentral. So I'm Leigh Capili. I am a staff developer advocate with the VMware Tanzu team. Always kind of trying to figure out what we're doing with modern apps. And you get into the enterprise sector and you're like, wow, what are we doing with modern apps? Some of these things don't look so modern, right? But I come from the Kubernetes and open source container world, have a little bit of an information security and infrastructure background. And I started my work at a kind of broadcasting company called DirecTV. A bunch of satellites over in a parking lot, beaming out over the central US, kind of cool. And that's where I learned how to write software that did DNS stuff. And when you start in a place that dark, you just learn to wield the magic of infrastructure in all of the pain inspiring ways. And that's how I ended up here.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, very cool. We'll have to chat on DirecTV at some point as well, maybe another time. But that's really cool. And today, a couple of things that were top of mind for you. Maybe we can kick off with you wanted to talk about file systems or file management and the computers that we deserve.
Yeah, the computers we deserve is something that I've been really thinking about a lot over the past few years, and it's been on my mind lately because I was recently prototyping. But yeah, I mean, if you think about the most basic thing, at least from like a very Unixy world, right? But the whole point of the computers is like, hey, we want to create some stuff and we want to move some information around so people can get the info they want. So I can play with the information that I need and maybe make some new realizations. And then I want to store that information, right? And so we call those things files. It's like the basic unit of information when we are computing on the computer things. And I feel like, man, when I hold my smartphone or when I sign up for a service at the FedEx shipping office down the street, that sometimes I'm touching these computers and it's like they don't want me to see the files.
Mm.
They don't want to expose those files to me. And I don't know, maybe it's a little bit naive, right? Maybe, decades of research in usable interfaces and stuff is really what's led us to this point. And
Mhm.
we have the computers we deserve, but
Mhm.
I'm not sure about that. What do you think, Boo? Do you feel like
Well,
your computers take care of your files?
that's funny that you mentioned that. Do you have kids, Lee?
I don't have kids. I just have two dogs. Yeah.
Okay. I have three kids, and as they grow up now, they don't get file systems, like the concept of a file system. Whereas like when I got a computer, it came with MS-DOS. And
Mhm.
so you're very much like doing change directory around and you're modifying files so that your computer boots up a little bit faster so you can squeeze a little bit more resources to play that game. So
Mhm.
you're constantly working with files and you're understanding file extensions and what different files do. But then
Yeah.
my kids, as they um, I mean, they're working with iOS or
Yes.
Android. And so everything is an app. And the app is not no concept of a file behind that app. And
Mhm.
anything that they're working with is kind of pre-filled. Maybe it's a form or something. It's already
Mhm.
there. There's a little bit of file structure with some of the schooling that my kids do. I think for the most part, they're using Google Classroom, and so there's file structure there. But I don't think they
Yeah.
get like if I were to show them C:// they wouldn't understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, you bring up the app thing, and I think that that's kind of the first culprit.
Mm,
When did this start happening? Right? When that first iPod Touch, that was also a phone, that was also an internet device, right? The Steve Jobs keynote, where he's
yeah.
like, "We're releasing three products: a touch iPod, a phone, and a world-class internet computer." A touch iPod, a phone, a world-class, and it was the iPhone. And you had that screen, and each one of those little boxes had their
Mm.
own bit of nebulous storage
Mhm.
behind it that you could not really access. It's weird to think that the world's most innovative computer company, kind of self-proclaimed, would make a notes app where you could not necessarily then take the file of the note that you wrote, right, and then move it somewhere else or do something interesting with it or convert it into something. And maybe that's a little bit facetious, and maybe I did own that iPhone. I owned and used that iPhone, the first one, for many, many, many years, modified it, jailbroke it so that I
Yeah,
could run real software
before the
on
App
it.
Store.
Um, but in that entire time, right, the revelation of file management in this new computing model of apps did not reveal itself to me. Instead, what revealed itself to me was that you could hack the device and then download a bunch of software from a bunch of APT repositories in the Ubuntu style. But it was this thing called Cydia, and you would
Yeah.
then have a terminal, right? Or and then you could go and rip open the backup of your device, or change some icons, or but the data underneath was all of these plist files, and then which is basically like a non-human readable database, right? Like it's you need other tools. You need to be a developer to start to play with that stuff. So it's not like, from the very beginning, the paradigm wasn't meant even for people pretty good with computers to work with those files. And that app legacy has sort of just been perpetuated into all of the products that our kids use these days.
Yeah.
So maybe it's because the device doesn't want your kids to know what a file is. But I gotta admit, yeah, the first time I used a computer, it was very quickly apparent that, like, a folder of a folder was something that I was gonna need to figure out how to understand.
Yeah, I mean, are you finding now, like I see more and more web development tools that are web-based, where you're
Mm,
not even installing it on your local file system. You're directly connected to the repo. And so you see the structure of the repo, and maybe from that you get the concept of a file system. But because I just think because there's no C:/, that you still don't understand like where those files necessarily live
mm.
or how they could live on a local computer. And so even like developers nowadays, you're working with files, but you're not working with files locally, you kind of lose some of that as well. And maybe in the next maybe 5 years or maybe 10 years, like even from a developer perspective, you totally lose that notion.
Yeah, I don't know how many people these days I meet. So you keep mentioning the C:/, right? Which,
Yeah.
let's just unpack that for a second. Right? That's a drive letter, right? It's a drive letter, and it's how it shows up in some path, or maybe at the beginning of your terminal prompt, but also at the top of any Windows Explorer window. Any place where you need to figure out, where are you on the computer? Like, what are you talking about storing a file? Where does it go? How do I get back to it? How is it different from other files? And that drive letter is actually addressing probably a physical piece of hardware, right? Like, there is a spinning series of platters, like, inside of this metal box called a hard drive. Or maybe there's a flash drive, a USB flash drive plugged into a port. Or maybe there's a solid state disk somewhere. um, and there's a bunch of kinds of drives, right? But, like, there's these physical mediums, right? Maybe there's a drive letter in Windows, so Windows calls each of these drives, it gives them a letter. They also have a name, they also have a hardware ID. But the C drive is usually your main disk, where your operating system is, where a lot of your user files are probably getting stored. And then you might have other disks. There might be a D drive that you plug in. There might be an N drive that you access over a network. Um, how many people do you meet these days, you think, who have a USB drive in their backpack? Like, something
Oh,
that Windows could be giving a letter to at all. I feel like a lot of my friends and stuff don't have those anymore, because they don't
thumb
need to
drive, or you
store their
think portable
files.
drive?
People don't even have MP3 players anymore necessarily, right?
No.
But why isn't, like, for those of you on the podcast, I'm pulling out my phone, right? Like, wasn't this supposed to be the touch iPod?
Yeah.
When did this change to something that we don't think about storing our files on? You know,
Yeah.
not that you can't do it. You can probably. I'll try not to rant too much about how difficult it is to manage files on an iPhone. If I plug my Android device
Mhm.
into my computer, and fuss around a little bit, I can use it as a USB drive, more or less. Um, but I can rip my photos off of it and that kind of thing. But these days, I think we've all been sold cloud services where our stuff
Mm.
kind of just nebulously lives, right? Um, something that's very frustrating to me is I don't know how we got into an ecosystem where, say, I'm using an Android device and my wife is using an Apple device. Why isn't it super easy for these devices to do the most basic thing that you would want from a computer, right? Which is to share information with each other. That's like a really interesting question to me. And then even then within the Android system ecosystem, which has its own fragmentation, its own proprietary implementations from different companies. Like if you and I walk up together, up to each other, you've got an LG phone and I've got a Samsung phone, but we're running the same exact operating system. We have basically the same device. It's got a touch screen. It's a black box that we can navel gaze into. And then it's got a couple cameras and probably the same exact ports on it and some wireless radios. And like, we're still uploading our photos to the cloud over our very expensive mobile broadband connections so that we can share things in compressed formats to each other through platforms that track our information and are like probably analyzing the photo to see like who's in it. Like how is this the reality of like photo sharing these days? We are so far from the Kodak moment, from the Fujifilm, like, hey, let me take this thing and then flap it out and then give you a photo. Like, instead, we've teleported like the most valuable moments of our lives, and we've given them away, and then are sharing cheapened versions of it, and that's just mind blowing to me. Like, these are not the computers we deserve. And
not only that, I mean, they're held ransom too, in my opinion, because you need to maintain, like, you have a certain amount of iCloud storage and then or whatever storage, and you need to maintain that. And who's going to go in? And by the time, it's so easy to take digital photos now that you take 20 times more, 100 times more photos than you would have in film days. And so you have this exponential amount of growth in your photo storage, and you're not going to go through and clear it out. And
I love that you're talking about this right now.
and
Because there's
so
something insidious as well that's happening there that's like sort of taken for granted. When you go into Microsoft Word, say this is 10 years ago, right? Or maybe 15, just to be safe, right? We're on a Windows XP machine. We open up Microsoft Word, which costs $99 or something, right? Now I have the privilege of using my computer to author documents that I can print on this thing called a printer. And I want to make a new document. I'm going to make a menu for my restaurant, right? And so I'm typing it up. I'm formatting it. I got some like fancy, like arcing gradient words, in the brilliant 2000s style. It's amazing. This is computing in the next generation era. And now I've written up this new information that I want to add to the world to make the world better. I'm going to print 30 copies of this so that my people at my restaurant can serve them to our customers. And our customers can be like, wow, this is a beautiful menu. And I hit save, Control S, right? And the computer is going to ask me, what do you want to call this? Right? Let's go and save you a new file. Where would you like to put this? Right? Go ahead and make a decision. You've made some new information. Organize this in the place in your life that makes sense. And me, as a responsible business owner in the new and computing era of the 2000s, I am going to put that in a folder with the rest of my restaurant stuff. These days, and this has been true ever since the iPhone invented the idea of the camera roll. You take a picture and your decision making has been made for you. It's done. It doesn't ask you, what is the context in which this photo was taken? Where would you like to store it? Where do you want to keep it? Instead, what happens is it goes into the blob with everything else, every other photo that you've ever taken, regardless of whether it is a picture of your dog or a picture of a tax receipt, right? And all of that stuff gets blobbed up together, and it gets archived and uploaded immediately to your cloud account. Have you ever tried to turn that off? Have you ever tried to start storing things into albums and be like, no, I only want this to upload to the cloud, but I don't want everything that lands in my camera roll to be uploaded? What I found when I thought, no, the way that I want this to work is I want everything to kind of go into the sandbox, and then I'm going to go in there into my gallery. I'm going to make a decision about each photo, and I'm going to put them into albums. This album's going to be uploaded, and this one's not. Right? This one's for high quality videos of, like, some functional training thing, some workout stuff or whatever. And so those videos are gigabytes, and I don't want to, those taking up my Google Cloud storage. It's not easy. In fact, the phone doesn't want you to do it at all. You basically have to turn off all backups completely, disconnect yourself. And so the way that you would want the service to work, it doesn't want you to do that. Now, I'm not an iPhone user this year. I was an iPhone user about 4 years ago. So I haven't tried that workflow with iCloud necessarily, but I can tell you authoritatively that with Google Photos, the phone just doesn't do that. The product's not designed for it. Isn't that kind of, I don't know, that word, like, it's being held ransom, that resonates with me. That I feel that pain.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine. Well, okay. You brought this up too before around touching along the lines of privacy. You upload your dog photos, get sent up to the cloud, and instead of relying on sorting your dog photos into an album, you get this convenient feature of just typing in dog, and it brings up all your dog photos. But what it took for that to happen, obviously, is that there is some scanning done of your pictures and metadata collected of, I mean, they know it's a dog in there. What else do they know about all of these pictures that I've been synchronizing into the cloud at that point? That's a little bit scary to me as well.
Yeah, I mean, they can probably even tell, like, what the average color temperature of your photos is, and like tell, like, what sort of time of day you're normally taking photos,
Yeah.
when it would be best to send you an advertisement about upgrading to the next phone or something, based just off of when you take photos. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with my friends just a couple days ago about the whole "is my phone listening to me" kind of thing. And what we know from all of our wonderful security researchers out there in the field and stuff is that, for the most part, no, your phone is not listening to you in the way that you think, right? In the way that people might be afraid of, right? The microphone isn't on recording keywords in your conversations to figure out what to sell you. But the sad part is that it doesn't need to, because the data about you that it does collect is already so fantastic that it's so advanced. I mean, like, the fact that our Bluetooth IDs could be correlated in the same physical space for some time window, like, that's what's being listened to. It's the Bluetooth radio, right? You were in the same cafe with these 3 people where this Wi-Fi network is. The Wi-Fi radio knows that that is a business that's registered with Google domains, right? And, like, that's the data that then, like, gets correlated with the fact that this person did a search, about this product, and that you met with them the day after through the Bluetooth radio. And that's all they need to know to make a decent guess based off of everything else that they know about you and that person, to be like, hey, we should probably serve that person an ad about something they probably talked about. And they can do that so well that they have factors built into the advertising so that they don't do it so well, so it doesn't creep you out.
It does
It,
already creep me out.
that is incredible. Um,
Yeah.
but what a shame that the most brilliant minds in our industry have hyper optimized solving that problem, maybe amidst other problems among us. I don't know. Some people would say that's not a shame. That surveillance capitalism is a good thing actually, and that's why we can enjoy targeted advertisements rather than untargeted ones. So, that's a toss up there. I think it is a trade off, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, though, I'll start by saying I had this problem, the iPhone Android photo sharing problem. I've had this problem many times, and my wife and I were snowboarding this beautiful resort in France called Chamonix when we were out there visiting for KubeCon Europe recently. And our instructor, or rather our guide, because we were off piste, although he was instructing us on how to not die. We got to the end of our 4-hour, 3-mile run down this place called La Vallée Blanche, the White Valley, and he's got an iPhone too, right? And so they're trying to get this AirDrop thing to work, and it's not working this time. AirDrop, it seems like it works pretty well between Apple devices normally. In this case, though, there was some maybe privacy setting or whatever. I know some of you are thinking, you're listening to this thinking, you know exactly what was wrong and like what menu to go through. Maybe that's true, but we did go through the menus and make sure that like the privacy sharing, like a AirDrop available to everyone thing was on, and it just wasn't working. So we couldn't get these high quality photos that he had taken of us. And I was sitting there thinking, man, wouldn't it be amazing? Like if he could just send them to me, if I had some software that would let that happen. So here we are a few months later, and I'm at a snowboard camp in Copper Mountain, Colorado, right? And I'm in a bus with my coach, my snowboard coach, right? There's like 150 of us there, 20 coaches. We're like going off the jumps and, hitting rails and getting absolutely bodied. It's painful. It's fun. Sun's out. The photos are great. And so like, I want some photos from my coach, and he's got an iPhone. I'm using an Android device. So he's able to AirDrop to most of our crew, but he can't do it to me. So he's thinking, oh, he'll probably email me some things or maybe, figure out some way to get me the photos. And I'm like, I have this exact same problem again. And it's literally like me not being able to see the memories of me doing the thing I love, which is to snowboard in a great place. So I went back to my room that night and I thought, what could I build? And you're not going to be able to see this if you're on the podcast, right? But I'll pull it up for you here. I'm just in Termux, which is a terminal emulator that gives you Linuxy things on an Android device. And
Yeah, you can share a screen if you want, and I can pull it up on the.
Yeah, this is literally just my phone, right?
Oh,
So,
okay.
so I'll just show the camera here, right?
Okay.
And I don't know if I can get the camera. I that was funny. I was trying to tap the phone to make it focus, but that's not the computer. That's out of focus. Anyway, so I have a terminal emulator here, and I'm just going to open the micro text editor. And this is what I built. It's like 20 lines of Bash. And it's opening an open source project that's Apache licensed called File Browser. File Browser is a website that can run on a Linux server. And I think there we go. And the first thing that's happening is we want to figure out what the IP address of my phone is, right? So the way that this gets used is I want to open my mobile hotspot on my phone. So my phone is going to advertise itself as a wireless router. Anybody can connect to it if they have the credentials. I'm going to just go and give them to it. And Android devices have a QR code for that. The QR code, they tried to make it fancy so it doesn't work on everybody's devices, right? But like there, right? There's a QR code. I'll change my password since that's now on the internet. And so you point your device at that QR code. Now our devices are technically linked together, right? We're on the same wireless network. So the next thing that I need to do is I need to create some sort of file server. And there's a bunch of ways to do that. Maybe you use SMB, maybe you use NFS, but that always gets into this weird zone, right? Where it's like those technologies, they're meant to be used by IT professionals, right? People who are good at like, they've got a NAS at their home, or they're plugging into an NFS share at their company. They're hooking up to, a storage address network, like at their really expensive hardware, in their office. But the problem I'm trying to solve is not for IT professionals, right? What everyone else can use though is their browser, right?
Mm.
And I'm thinking, how bad would it be to just try and send files over HTTP? I mean, like, that's what we're already doing when we resign ourselves to uploading our pictures to the cloud, right? When we share an album through like Google Photos and Gmail, we use iCloud's photo sharing feature or something. We're already asking the device to open up a tunnel to somebody's servers that's like not even in this physical location. Please beam all of my bits to that cell tower, and then my cell company will go and send that information to somebody. So maybe my phone can just host a website, right? And then I was like, well, somebody must have built a website, and that's that file browser project. So I downloaded file browser through my terminal, and now I'm just executing it at the bottom of this script. Now, how is somebody going to know my IP address and the ports that is being served on? Well, our phones have cameras. We've already used the camera for the Wi-Fi sharing thing. So why don't we just generate a QR code? It turns out in the world of open source, that there is a QR encode binary that I can just download and use. And I can just say QR encode something that's this many pixels and output a PNG in a particular file path. I can make that file path the one for my browser. So, the end result is I turn on my hotspot, and then I start my app. If it has to be an app, I guess I'll publish it as an app. That's fine. So here I just say serve files. It says it's listening on my IP address, and then it opens up the browser. And then there's a QR code. I just double click that QR code. Somebody can point their phone to this, and it's literally this address, this local Wi-Fi address, right? So like our phones have the radio. My phone can advertise itself as a network. Multiple people can join my network. We can all upload files to the same exact place, which is like standing right next to each other at the blazing fast speeds of Wi-Fi 6. And I can put a folder here. You can put a folder here. We can zip things. We can, share like 10 gigabytes of stuff in a minute. It's like,
that's awesome.
Why did I have to do this?
Yeah.
Like, there is zero reason why the most advanced computer companies in the world can't create a first-class standard, like uniform experience for everybody to be able to work with folders of folders between their devices wirelessly, right next to each other. This device, this device, this device. We should be able to send information to people without having to rely on paying for a high-speed broadband connection. That's what I believe. At least that's the world that I grew up in, the world of SanDisk MP3 players and the first iPod. But I don't know, just some of you listeners, I'm just a millennial punk, right? So
Yeah, you know what? This is raising awareness. People might not think they care, but they should care um, about something like this because just for all the reasons that we spent the last few minutes highlighting through privacy concerns or cost
Mm,
concerns or usability concerns. All of those things are, I think, places where those companies
mm,
add value, quote unquote, and we pay the price, whether it's immediate monetary price or value, or we're
mm.
paying the price through losing some of our privacy.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, you know, whatever price we're paying for computers, which sometimes it seems expensive, maybe it's not though, right? Maybe we should be paying 3 times more for our phones. I don't know. Apple is a company that prides themselves on their security and interoperability. I think for the most part, they seem to be able to tell that story well enough for most people to use their devices. But like, a- as somebody who like works with audio visual stuff, right? File management, between an iPhone and a Mac is sort of an abysmal story, and I own those devices downstairs, right? But it sort of doesn't seem like it wants you to do things that way. You've got to kind of work with the media in the abstract rather than know what file name it has.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit sad to me. So hopefully our next generation of computers, or maybe our next generation of computer users, can sort of wake up the producers of these machines. And I mean, maybe
Yeah.
we're talking to some devs right now, and some electrical engineers and hardware engineers who can influence their next product design in a little bit of a better direction.
Yeah. Some things to think about, folks. I think this is a good place to park that subject. I think we can go into a part 2 at some point as well. We had a couple other ideas that we're stewing, and so I think this is a good segue, or a good opportunity to park and then have a segue for a part 2 at some point, maybe later on in the summer, and talk about maybe some peer-to-peer file sharing type scenarios as well.
Oh, that would be
Um,
amazing. Really fun. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to solve all the world's problems through this chat. This is great. Very cool.
And we're going to
Well,
give
thanks for
them
joining.
problems of backing up all their files, right?
Yeah. um, well, Leigh, before I pull you backstage here, where can folks connect with you, find you, see you, all those things?
Yeah. Thanks, friends, for listening to my slightly energetic rant on this topic. If you do want to meet in a little bit of a less heated area, or give me feedback on what you think about file management on your own devices, things that are maybe reducing pain for you, you can connect with me on Twitter. I am on Instagram as well, but my Twitter handle here on the screen and also for the podcast is CAPILEIGH. And yeah, I'm out on the internet. My GitHub is STELTHYBOX, Stealthy Box. And yeah, hit me up. Send me a DM, tweet at me about your opinions. Love to follow up a little bit.
Yeah, fantastic. Did you mention that the project that you just worked on is in your GitHub?
This is not on GitHub yet. I will, I think, be uploading this to the App Store
Okay.
as an app called Lemon Drop, which you should be looking out for in the next month. So
Nice. Okay, cool. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Leigh. I'll leave a note again. I'm going to create a show thread on community.f5.com so folks can follow up with this info. But yeah, thank you very much for joining me, Leigh.
thanks, friends.
Awesome. I'll see you in a sec. Alrighty. Awesome to have Leigh on and chat about that. Thought provoking, actually, as I think through all of the things that, as far as like things we give up when we're um, sharing all of these files with other sources and things that they can gather from it, and how that affects advertising and the ads we see, and how my children are growing up without the concept of file systems, where I had to struggle with C colon auto exec and what was the other one? BIOS.sys or something like that. The startup files for MS-DOS, and you spend your life struggling with those when you're a kid because you want to be able to run the latest game, and you have to adjust memory allocations and whatnot. So cool subject to talk about. Just wrapping things up here. Again, I'm just going to remind folks, it is the 20th anniversary for DevCentral. Can't believe it's been 20 years at this point. I joined F5 about 12 years ago. And before that, I used to work at a partner of F5's and used to deal with F5. So I've known DevCentral for that, for quite a number of years at this point. And it's always been amazing to be able to connect with folks on there and get help with your F5 and discuss technology in general as well. So if you are not a member, I would encourage you to go check out DevCentral. Check out the YouTube channel. Got lots of content on there, especially from the last week at InfoSec Europe. And then a few other things that are dropping. A lot of things actually are dropping in the next week or so as well. So you want to check out what's on the YouTube. Still a little bit more InfoSec Europe content to drop. Aubrey has dropped a bunch of stuff around this month of security, and then a couple of things actually from RSA that were recently dropped as well. And if you haven't already, please subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, hit follow, leave comments. If you're watching live right now, we'd love to know where you're watching us from, although we're kind of towards the end here, but thank you for joining us today. And then podcast audio version available on Google, Spotify, and Apple. That was it. How could I forget Apple? Again, subscribe on there, leave a 5-star review. Totally helps us out. And otherwise, thank you very much, folks. We are on a reduced schedule for the summer, but I will see you on the next one. Bye for now. Well, thanks for checking out that video. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. While you're down there, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. You might want to check out one of these videos over here. And if you haven't already, go check out community.f5.com. This is where all the DevCentral Connects hosts hang out, as well as the rest of the community. It's free to sign up, and we'll see you there.